Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going all the way back to the Renaissance.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, to explore the life and work of none other than Leonardo da Vinci.
One of the greats.
Absolutely. I mean, who hasn't heard of da Vinci, right? But how much do we really know about the man behind those iconic works of art?
I think that's what makes him so fascinating. Even centuries later, there's still so much to discover about him.
Right, so we've gathered a whole bunch of YouTube videos for this deep dive covering everything from his art and scientific discoveries to some of the wilder theories about his inspiration.
Ah, yes, like those ancient astronaut ideas. We'll have to get into those.
Oh yeah, we're not shying away from anything. We're here to unpack the truth behind the myth of Leonardo da Vinci. Was he really as brilliant as everyone says? And if so, what made him tick? Was there something unique about his upbringing or his environment?
These are the questions that keep historians and art enthusiasts coming back to Leonardo after all these centuries.
I mean, just look at the sheer range of his work. He wasn't just a painter, he was a sculptor, a scientist, an engineer, an inventor. The list goes on and on.
A true Renaissance man.
Exactly, and we'll be looking at all of it from hidden symbolism in the Mona Lisa to those incredibly detailed anatomical drawings he was doing centuries ahead of his time.
And we can't forget about the mystery surrounding his missing years. What was he up to during that time?
Okay, so let's start by setting the stage. Leonardo was born in 1452 in Vinci, Italy.
Seems straightforward enough, right?
Well, there is a twist. He was illegitimate.
Ah, that's actually a crucial detail to understanding Leonardo's path. You see, he was born to a notary and a peasant woman, which meant he didn't have access to the same kind of education as other wealthy children at the time.
So no fancy Latin schools for young Leonardo.
No, instead he learned through a more hands-on approach, first with his grandfather, and then later as an apprentice to the renowned artist Verrocchio in Florence.
It makes you wonder if maybe sometimes not following that traditional path can actually be an advantage.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? Leonardo's genius seems to have thrived outside of that rigid structure of the academic system.
Right, and it seems like this constant exploration, this kind of insatiable curiosity that he had from a young age, would become the driving force behind his work throughout his entire life.
Absolutely. He was never content to just stick to one field. He was always pushing boundaries, always seeking new knowledge, always trying to connect the dots between seemingly unrelated things.
Now, before we jump into his more famous works, there's some debate about the authorship of some early Madonna paintings that have been attributed to Leonardo.
Ah, yes. It highlights just how difficult it can be to trace a work of art back to its creator, especially from that era.
Even the experts sometimes can't agree on who actually painted what.
Right. Sometimes the evidence just isn't clear-cut, leaving room for interpretation and debate among art historians.
But despite the uncertainty around some of these early pieces, one thing's for sure, even as an apprentice, Leonardo's talent was undeniable.
There's even that story, though. It may be more legend than fact that Verrocchio, Leonardo's own master, swore off painting after seeing how talented his student was.
Wow, imagine being so overshadowed by your own pupil that you give up your craft.
It speaks volumes about Leonardo's early promise. He was clearly a once-in-a-generation talent, someone who truly embodied the spirit of the Renaissance.
He's like the poster child for the term Renaissance man, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. He embodied that era's ideal of a polymath, someone who wasn't confined to just one area of expertise. Leonardo was a painter, a sculptor, a scientist, an engineer, an inventor, an architect, an anatomist. The list just goes on and on.
It's almost too much for one person to handle. It makes you wonder, did he ever sleep?
His range of expertise is truly remarkable, and he even spent time designing elaborate festivals and theatrical productions for powerful patrons like the Duke of Milan, Ludovico Sforza.
It's no wonder some people come up with those ancient astronaut theories to try and explain his genius.
I can see why people find those theories so intriguing. I mean, some of Leonardo's ideas like flying machines and robots seem so far ahead of their time.
It's almost like he had access to knowledge that just wasn't available back then.
Right. It really pushes the boundaries of what we consider possible, and it forces us to ask, where did these ideas come from? Was there something more to his inspirations?
I'm all for keeping an open mind, but I also think it's important to look at the evidence. What do you make of those ancient astronaut claims?
Well, while they are entertaining, I tend to lean towards a more grounded explanation for Leonardo's genius. His incredible powers of observation, his relentless pursuit of knowledge, and his ability to connect information from diverse fields that likely played a much larger role in his groundbreaking ideas.
That makes a lot of sense. Even without alien intervention, his accomplishments are still pretty astonishing.
Absolutely. He had a unique way of seeing the world and connecting the dots between seemingly unrelated things.
And nowhere is that more apparent than in his fascination with anatomy. I mean, his drawings are legendary.
They truly are masterpieces in their own right. He dissected dozens of corpses, meticulously documenting every detail of the human body.
Wait, he actually dissected human body. That's pretty intense for a Renaissance artist. Was that even allowed back then?
It was highly unusual, but Leonardo wasn't afraid to push boundaries. He understood that to accurately depict the human form in his art, he needed to have a deep understanding of how it worked from the inside out.
It's amazing how dedicated he was to his craft. And this wasn't just some passing interest, was it?
Not at all. He was particularly fascinated by the heart. His notebooks are filled with incredibly detailed observations about the heart's valves and chambers and the movement of blood.
It's like he was on the verge of cracking the code of human life itself.
He was incredibly close to understanding blood circulation long before William Harvey made his groundbreaking discovery in the 17th century.
Wow, that's incredible to think about how far ahead of his time he was.
It really is. And speaking of his notebooks, I've always been curious about his mirror writing. Why do you think he wrote everything backward?
That's one of the big mysteries surrounding Leonardo. Some believe he did it to keep his ideas secret, while others suggest it was simply more comfortable for him as a left-handed writer.
Maybe it was a bit of both, a little secrecy mixed with practicality.
Whatever the reason, it definitely adds to his mystique.
It certainly does. It makes studying his notebooks that much more intriguing.
Okay, I think it's time to address the elephant, or rather the woman with the enigmatic smile in the room, the Mona Lisa. Who was she? Why did Leonardo keep this painting for himself? And of course the question that has haunted art lovers for centuries, what's behind that mysterious smile?
The Mona Lisa is a masterpiece wrapped in layers of mystery. We know very little for certain about the sitter, though many believe her to be Lisa Gherardini, the wife of a wealthy silk merchant from Florence.
It was a commissioned portrait, right? So why did he just hand it over once it was finished?
That's one of the enduring puzzles surrounding the painting. Some speculate that Leonardo simply became too attached to the work, while others believe it held a deeper, more personal significance for him.
And then, of course, there was the theft in 1911.
Oh, yes, that definitely played a role in cementing her status as a global icon.
I guess sometimes even bad press could be good press, especially for a 500-year-old painting.
It certainly seems that way in this case.
Speaking of old paintings, there was a lot of debate surrounding the Bacchus painting and whether or not it was actually a Leonardo original.
Ah, yes, the Bacchus debate. It's a fascinating case study in how science can help us solve art historical mysteries.
They had to use some pretty high-tech analysis to figure it out.
It shows just how complex determining authenticity can be.
Okay, before we move on to The Last Supper, and believe me, I am dying to dive into that masterpiece, can we talk about some of Leonardo's other innovations? I mean, this guy accomplished so much outside of painting. It's mind-blowing.
It really is. He was constantly pushing the boundaries of what was possible in so many different fields.
Like his iconographic map of Imola, he created this incredibly detailed map centuries before satellite imagery even existed.
It's a truly remarkable achievement. To create the map, Leonardo used a compass and a system of gears to measure distances and angles. It gave him a precise bird's-eye view of the entire city.
It's like he invented a rudimentary form of surveying hundreds of years ahead of its time.
Exactly. It was a groundbreaking achievement in cartography. And then, of course, there are his innovations in art, like the sfumato technique he used in the Mona Lisa.
Sfumato? What is that? Sounds like some fancy coffee drink.
It means smoky in Italian. It's this technique where you blend colors and tones very subtly to create soft, hazy transitions.
Ah, so that's what gives the Mona Lisa that kind of ethereal, otherworldly quality.
Exactly. It's like she's emerging from a dream. It's one of the things that makes her so captivating.
You can't quite put your finger on what makes her so mesmerizing.
And it's a testament to Leonardo's deep understanding of light-shadow and how our eyes perceive the world. He was a master of creating the illusion of depth and realism on a flat canvas.
He really was a master of illusion. Now, are you finally ready to talk about The Last Supper? I've been itching to get to this one all day.
Absolutely. Let's dive in. The Last Supper is a masterpiece of composition, symbolism, and psychological insight. Leonardo went to great lengths to capture the drama and the emotional intensity of that pivotal moment.
The way he captures the apostles' reactions to Christ's announcement that one of them will betray him, it's so powerful.
You can practically feel the tension in the room.
Everyone looks so shocked and distraught, except for Judas, who seems to be shrinking back into the shadows.
Leonardo was a master of nonverbal communication. Each figure is so meticulously rendered, their gestures and expressions revealing their inner turmoil.
There's also so much symbolism packed into this painting. The missing halos, the spilled salt, the way Christ is positioned right in the center of the composition. Every detail seems so carefully chosen.
Nothing was accidental. Leonardo was very deliberate in his use of symbolism. He used every element of the painting to convey a deeper meaning.
And didn't he also experiment with new techniques for this painting?
That's right. Instead of using traditional fresco techniques, he decided to try a new approach combining tempera and oil paints on dry plaster.
Which unfortunately didn't hold up so well over time.
True, the painting has suffered significant damage, but thankfully we have several copies made by his students and contemporaries that help us understand how the original looked.
It's really amazing how one small detail, like the choice of paint, can have such a huge impact on a work of art centuries later.
It is, and speaking of details, there's one thing about The Last Supper that has always intrigued me, the use of perspective. It's like you're actually in the room with them.
Leonardo's understanding of perspective was revolutionary. He used a technique called one-points perspective to create the illusion of depth and space, making the room seem to extend beyond the walls of the painting.
It's like a window into that moment in time.
And I read that he planned the perspective meticulously, even hammering a nail into the wall to mark the vanishing point.
His attention to detail was astounding. It's that dedication to realism and precision that makes Leonardo's work so captivating. He was such a keen observer of the world around him.
And speaking of details, there's one thing that always struck me as odd about The Last Supper. There's no chalice on the table.
You're right. The absence of the chalice, which traditionally holds the wine symbolizing Christ's blood, has sparked a lot of debate and interpretation among art historians.
What are some of the theories about why he left it out?
Some believe it was a deliberate choice to emphasize the importance of the bread, which represents Christ's body. Others see it as a subtle way of highlighting the spiritual nature of the Eucharist.
It's fascinating how one small detail can have such a profound impact on how we interpret a work of art.
It really is. Leonardo was a master of sparking curiosity and inviting us to think deeply about his work.
Centuries later, we're still trying to unlock the secrets hidden within his paintings.
And it's not just his paintings that are so intriguing. His notebooks are filled with inventions, observations, and philosophical musings that give us a glimpse into his incredible mind.
I can only imagine what it would be like to spend a day exploring those notebooks.
They are a treasure trove of ideas, both practical and fantastical, covering everything from anatomy and engineering to optics and botany. It's like a whirlwind tour through the mind of a genius.
And they remind us that Leonardo was much more than just a painter. He was a true polymath, a man of endless curiosity, always seeking new knowledge and pushing the boundaries of human understanding.
It's like he saw the world differently than anyone else. His curiosity was boundless. He was constantly asking questions, observing, experimenting, and documenting his findings.
It's an approach to life that I think we can all learn from. To truly understand the world around us, we need to embrace that curiosity and be willing to challenge conventional thinking, just like Leonardo did.
I couldn't agree more. It's that spirit of inquiry that drives innovation and leads to new discoveries, and I think that's a perfect place to pause for now.
Okay, I'm definitely ready for a little break. We've covered a lot of ground already, from Leonardo's humble beginnings to some of his most famous masterpieces.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore. But for now, let's let all this information sink in a bit.
You know, it's incredible to think that someone who lived over 500 years ago can still feel so relevant today. Leonardo's ideas and work continue to fascinate and inspire us, even in our modern world.
I think his enduring appeal lies in the fact that he represents the very best of humanity, his insatiable curiosity, his boundless creativity, his relentless pursuit of knowledge. Those are qualities that we all admire and aspire to.
He's a true icon, a symbol of human potential. But I'm curious, despite his obvious brilliance, did Leonardo face any challenges or setbacks during his lifetime?
Even a genius like Leonardo encountered obstacles. Despite his incredible talent and visionary ideas, many of his projects were never completed.
I guess that's the curse of being ahead of your time. The world might not always be ready for the groundbreaking ideas of a visionary.
That's a good point. And in addition to that, his notes and writings were rarely published during his lifetime, meaning many of his discoveries remained hidden for centuries.
It's almost tragic to think about all those lost insights. Imagine the impact his work could have had if it had been shared more widely during his time.
It really makes you wonder how different the course of history might have been, but I guess it's also a reminder that even the most brilliant minds can be limited by the circumstances of their era.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Leonardo's legacy. How do you think he's remembered today beyond the famous paintings and inventions? What is it about him that continues to capture our imagination?
I think it's because he reminds us that we are capable of achieving incredible things if we dare to dream big and push beyond our perceived limits.
He's like a shining example of what humans can accomplish when we combine talent with a relentless drive to explore and create. And he wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo, question authority, and explore unconventional ideas.
Absolutely. He was a true rebel in many ways, and that rebellious spirit, that willingness to think differently, is something that continues to inspire artists, scientists, and thinkers today.
It's amazing how someone from such a different time can still feel so relatable and inspiring.
It's a testament to the timeless nature of his work. His paintings, drawings, and writings, they continue to captivate and challenge us, forcing us to confront our own assumptions and see the world in new ways.
Speaking of asking questions, let's play a little game. If you could ask Leonardo just one question, what would it be?
That's a tough one. So many things I'd love to ask him, but if I had to pick just one, I think I'd ask him what he considered to be his greatest achievement.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm curious, what do you think his answer would be?
It's hard to say for sure. He was a man of many talents, and it's impossible to single out any one accomplishment as definitively greater than the others, but I have a feeling his answer might surprise us. He might say that his greatest achievement wasn't a specific painting or invention, but rather his insatiable curiosity and his relentless pursuit of knowledge. Those were the driving forces behind all of his work, and they are qualities that continue to inspire us even today.
That's a beautiful thought. It's a reminder that sometimes the journey is just as important as the destination, and that the pursuit of knowledge and understanding is a reward in itself.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys, I think it's time we start to wrap up our deep dive into the world of Leonardo da Vinci. We've explored his humble beginnings, his extraordinary achievements in art, science, and engineering, and we've even delved into some of the mysteries surrounding his life and work.
It's been an incredible journey. We've examined his masterpieces, peeked into his notebooks, and even entertained some out-of-this-world theories about his inspirations.
And I hope we've inspired you to learn more about this fascinating figure and to embrace your own inner Renaissance person. After all, we all have the potential for greatness within us.
That's a fantastic message to leave our listeners with. Before we officially wrap up, I have one final question for you. What's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this deep dive into the mind of Leonardo da Vinci?
I want them to remember that Leonardo da Vinci was more than just a brilliant artist or a gifted inventor. He was a symbol of human potential, a reminder that we are all capable of achieving great things if we dare to dream big, embrace curiosity, and never stop learning.
I love that. It's a powerful reminder that the pursuit of knowledge and the courage to explore new ideas are essential for personal growth and for the advancement of society as a whole.
Precisely, and that's the beauty of figures like Leonardo da Vinci. They continue to inspire us centuries later, pushing us to be more curious, more creative, and more engaged with the world around us.
Well said. Okay, folks, that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us as we explore the fascinating world of Leonardo da Vinci.
It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
You know, as we've been discussing Leonardo's insatiable curiosity, it's got me thinking about how we often box ourselves in. We get so focused on one area of expertise that we forget to look beyond our own little worlds.
That's very true. We can become so specialized that we miss out on the connections between different fields, and that's often where real innovation happens, at the intersection of different disciplines.
Leonardo's life is a perfect example of that. He was constantly drawing inspiration from nature, from art, from science, from engineering. He saw the world as this interconnected web of knowledge, and he wasn't afraid to explore every corner of it.
His approach reminds us that true innovation comes from embracing curiosity, from connecting seemingly disparate ideas, and from never losing that childlike sense of wonder.
Imagine if Leonardo were alive today. What do you think he'd be most fascinated by? What fields would he be exploring?
Oh, that's a fun thought experiment. Given his wide-ranging interests, it's hard to say for sure. But I imagine he would be drawn to the cutting edge of technology. Perhaps he'd be delving into artificial intelligence, robotics, or even bioengineering.
He might even be designing those self-driving flying cars we've been hearing so much about, combining his love of art engineering and the dream of human flight.
The possibilities are endless when you have a mind like Leonardo's. He would be pushing the boundaries in any field he chose to pursue.
Well, I think we've thoroughly explored the myth and the reality of Leonardo da Vinci today.
We've examined his art, his science, and his enduring influence on the world. And I hope we've inspired you to go on your own deep dives to explore the topics that ignite your curiosity.
That's what the deep dive is all about, encouraging lifelong learning and the pursuit of knowledge. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. It's amazing to think about, if Leonardo were alive today, what would he be working on?
Oh, wow. Yeah, what would a mind like his be focused on in the 21st century? It's really a fascinating question.
I mean, he was so ahead of his time in so many ways.
Right, like you could easily imagine him designing a self-driving flying car.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like combining his passion for art and engineering with his, lifelong dream of human flight.
Or maybe he'd be creating some incredible virtual reality experience that blurs the lines between art and reality.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Or maybe he'd even be diving into the world of artificial intelligence.
Right, trying to unlock the secrets of the human mind and recreate it.
He was always fascinated by the human body and the way it worked. I bet he'd be all over the latest advancements in bioengineering and genetics.
Absolutely. It's mind-boggling to think what he could accomplish with today's technology.
No doubt he'd be pushing the boundaries in whatever field he chose to pursue.
Well, I think we've done a pretty good job of exploring both the myth and the reality of Leonardo da Vinci today.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about his art, his science, his inventions, and his enduring influence on the world.
And hopefully we've inspired our listeners to maybe do some of their own deep dives into the topics that spark their curiosity.
Absolutely. That's what we hope for with every episode, to encourage lifelong learning and that pursuit of knowledge.
Because you never know what amazing discoveries are out there waiting to be made.
Exactly. And that's what Leonardo da Vinci's life really teaches us, to never stop questioning, to never stop exploring, and to always be open to new possibilities.
Well said. So on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring the world of Leonardo with you.
Likewise. And to our listeners out there, thanks for joining us. And remember, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing those boundaries.
Until next time.